Hey, folks. Hey, guys. I was wondering if there would be any interest in this topic. So maybe there isn't, since nobody's here from Periscope. Normally, you can gauge, unless I'm not on the global list or something. So maybe it's not interesting for most people. I don't know. You tell me. I find it quite interesting. So we'll gauge. Hello, who's that? Great Gold. Okay, let me just monitor YouTube here, and then I'll be ready in a second here. In the meantime, welcome, guys, and I hope you enjoy what we're going to talk about tonight. Hold on, just getting the channel started here on YouTube. There we go. Okay, so hello, Daniel Horton. How are you doing, Daniel? Entire Meyer, Stoic, and AMG and Twistman and Storm Media Brothers. Hello on YouTube. Lenny PR. Who else is on Periscope here? Shocking Guy, Phage, Surgeon, Greg Leb, uh, some new people. So welcome, folks, and there you are, Daniel Horton. Thank you for joining on YouTube. Thank you. Are you new to our YouTube crew here? I don't remember your name from before. Please invite. Thank you, Great Gold. Thank you. So we have kind of a fun topic. Well, it's educational. And hello, Lavelle Logan. It's educational, and something that we don't always think about, and it's kind of connected to some of the topics I've been talking about, and it's kind of it's a bit of a rehash and some new stuff in addition, but just in the global way of thinking about being kind of like a prepper. I've been here before on Mr. Doughboy on Periscope. Okay, Mr. Doughboy on Periscope. Daniel, good to see you again. So, a little bit of I found, and this is why I've been kind of like, refocusing what I do to more physical things. As you know, I spent a lot of time talking about Zucking Zuck book and all the evils of the powers to be on the internet, and that's been my focus. But I found that there's a group of people that kind of think like I do in a lot of these things, and I found that group is made up of preppers. So I was searching through YouTube and looking at some of the preppers and seeing what they're doing on YouTube, and then what I've been talking about, and there's a lot of intersection there. And if you look at my title, I've actually considered myself kind of a. I'm saying what if we think of ourselves as a new prepper? I've actually, in a sense, I've been doing prepper-like things without really calling myself a prepper, and I don't really consider myself a full prepper. Hello, Mario, but some of the things that I think about, maybe something we should all think about, and not necessarily because we have a kind of prepper mentality of total social breakdown or an EMP kind of environment or that kind of thing, which I talked about last week, which was very interesting. A week ago, my topic was what happens when we get an EMP, electromagnetic pulse. And that was my topic from last week. And then we were talking about emergency radios. We're talking about emergency radios, kind of like this. And I had the speaker on. Salt and prepper. I've been and suddenly I just said, hey, I've been thinking about all this kind of in a big picture, and maybe we should all think about it, and expose you to some of this that I've thought about, and other aspects of this, because certainly we've talked a lot about radios, and we'll talk some more about it, and some other things that relate to prepping and why. And some of the questions are, why should you think about X versus Y, and so on. And some of the times we don't actually think about preparing at all. We don't. I'm in a way, you might say I'm kind of a bad at preparation myself, because I'll be honest with you. I have many 10-gallon plastic containers, which I've listed some on my YouTube broadcast for tonight. You see some of the links of some of the plastic containers I have, and I have a lot of them. I have enough to probably easily have over 100 gallons that I can muster in an emergency. But I'm going to tell you, the funny thing is I haven't filled up any of those water bottles. I have not. So I need to find a time to go fill it up and stow it. And the problem is thinking about where I didn't want to carry it until I decide where I'm going to store it because they're kind of heavy. They're heavy, and that's I'll tell you some of the issues you got to think about with some of that sometimes. Uh, there's other things that if you actually think, let's kind of back up a moment here and think about some of the issues that you would think about as a kind of a with a prepper like thinking, and yes, preppers have kind of a have a preppers have a I mean the true preppers have a sort of a tinfoil tinfoil hat kind of image, right? Any preppers in here? The tinfoil kind of image, maybe because Alex Jones sells prepper stuff on his website. So, and Alex Jones seems to attract a lot of the prepper types, and I also attract prepper type. I want a doctor prepper. I also seem to attract preppers as well because of the subject matter. But the tinfoil hats are on too tight. But the reality is, yes, there are things that I do that are totally compatible with what preppers think about. In fact, many of the things I do are compatible. And so we're going to talk about that. Why not just buy 100 single gallons for $100, put in garage? Because Maui, you can't pile it up on each other. It will the plastic cannot handle the weight. The plastic cannot handle the weight. So we'll talk about that. Prepping can be a good hobby, can even be money saving. There you go. So, and of course, prepping also includes, this. So, not the toy, not this toy, the real deal, but this is a toy. But yes, being a prepper includes this. So that's, so I can just see some of the anti-gun people coming in here, and I'm gonna have these. They banned Alex Jones. He must be onto something since they did that to him. Alex Jones. Yep. So I've defended the right of Alex Jones to speak, even though I'm not a follower of the Alex Jones mentality, and I certainly don't believe in interdimensional aliens. So I can't say that I can't say that I'm that. Can you afford a 40 Glock, Doug? You're in a budget. Come on, get something cheap. Um, so yes. I don't necessarily. There's some things that that doesn't work too well, Maui. Seriously, because you can't pile them up. Yes, you can. You can't pile it up. Anyway, let's talk about the things that you would have to think about as a prepper. What would you, as a prepper, or with at least a prepper kind of thought process, what would you need to address? And so we're going to talk about some of these in groups and discuss what I think about it. And maybe some of you are expert preppers, because I'm not. And I'll tell you, but I'm an expert on some things, and I can talk about that a little bit, and my experience with it. And then we maybe, as a group, we can combine our ideas and get an idea of what to actually do when it comes to an emergency. I'll give you an example. Here in California, last year, less than a year ago, there was a lot of fires was it in November? So there was a lot of fires in California, and during November, we get what is called the Santa Ana winds, and the winds come from the desert and they whip up from the north, and the wind goes from north to south, and it it accelerates because of the mountain passes. So the wind accelerates, and then if a fire starts and you're in that area where the mountains are, then you kind of burn up. Okay, very very quickly because of the wind, because the wind increases the. I'll tell you. I'll tell you about that later. Just be patient. We'll get into that. We'll get into that because that's not necessarily not necessarily practical advice. Depending on where you are. So yeah. I don't have a basement. Twist Mint probably doesn't have a basement. And depending on what you're trying to do, you can't stack them up. So you got to be careful. So what are the things that you got to think about for disasters like the one that happened here in California? California is, we're not immune to disasters. We get them a lot. I've experienced many earthquakes in here, and some pretty bad. And I've, in prior places I've lived in, I've experienced even stronger earthquakes. And I'm also by the beach, so there's other things that can happen. There was a tsunami thing that came through, and I was in the harbor checking to make sure that my boat was going to survive the tsunami from Thailand, I believe, from Indonesia, and it turned out to be not so bad. But it was, scary, and some people tried actually going in the water because they weren't thinking about it. So there's a lot of like little things, emergencies can happen around here, and so if you're not prepared for these emergencies, earthquakes, like I said, fires, mudslides, and anything that else that happens around here, tornadoes were in the Midwest, hurricanes, and so on, and all of these things that happen, and if you're not ready, then you're not ready. And so we're going to talk about what elements might be of interest to a prepper, and we're going to talk about how it applies. Hello, Jim Beam. So we're going to talk about at some part of this. We're going to talk about communication. So I have a couple of radios in here, but some radios that I have not talked about. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about food supply. We'll talk about water. We'll talk about weapons, and exactly what we're trying. Bug out plans. We'll talk about all that. Okay, I'm starting to prep. So somebody asked me on BraxMe, do you have a bug out location? Well, I happen to have a boat. And I was like thinking to myself, so in a crisis, would this? I live in LA. So LA, there's a lot of people in here. If they're trying to escape, what would they do? And I was like saying, would they try to steal my boat? And I have a sailboat, so my guess is most of the average person probably doesn't know how to use a sailboat. That's my guess. No, you don't use that Streamlabs. No, support me by Super Chat on YouTube and Super Hearts on Periscope or Patreon, or buy some of the products that I offer, like Bytes VPN. So bug out. So one of the things that you think about is, are you kind of a bug out kind of guy? Do you actually, few people know how to, well, they're worse, Jack. I mean, they're actually, they're complex, and especially a big sailboat, you're not going to know how to use them. Would get stolen? No, they won't, because, no. It's very hard to operate a sailboat. If you don't know how, you don't even know how to put up the sails. Neither would you even know how to start the engine. This is not like a car. I don't know if you know how to operate a boat. You don't just put the key in the ignition and turn it on and off you go. It doesn't work like that. if you do that, you'd in a few minutes you'd break down and get stuck. You'd get stuck and you'd have a burnt engine, and that would be it. You'd be stuck. You got to know what to do. So I was like thinking to myself, would people from what's her name? The congressman, the crazy congresswoman. What's her name? What's the name of the crazy congresswoman? Come on, people, tell me what's her name. Not AOC, Maxine Waters. Yes, in my area. So that's not my area. Maxine Waters. That's not in my area, guys. My God, look at all this, all these names. They're not in my area, but the craziest is Maxine, and she's right in my neighborhood here. So anyway, Maxine's constituents in Compton, I can imagine them trying to get to the beach. Will they actually know to the harbor? Would they actually steal a boat? They're trying to escape, and they're like escaping zombies. Would they go to steal a boat? And I said to myself, probably not. I don't think they know how. Okay, I don't think they know how. The average person does not know how to run a boat. So I figure, okay, I can actually walk to my boat. I can actually walk to the boat. And if I didn't have a car, if there was no gas or whatever, I could actually walk to the boat. And even with no gas, a sailboat can operate. So my sailboat even has water. It has a bath. It has a stove for cooking and all that. No stealing, probably vandalism during a riot. What are you going to do? Jump in the water to reach the docks? Jump in the water? How do you, it's not easy. I mean, in order to steal a boat, you almost need a boat to steal a boat. To get access to the docks. It's not easy to get access them. So, but I guess, if there's 100,000 people trying to do it. Yeah, I have a dinghy, yes. Yes, I have a dinghy as well. I have a dinghy in the house. I have an inflatable. So in theory, I can run to the beach, inflate it. Well, wait a minute. No, that's not going to work. Guess why? My outboard is on the boat. My outboard's on the boat. So I have to get to the boat to use the outboard for the. So no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So my sailboat has power. It's a diesel engine, but an average person isn't going to know how to use that. It's not like a car. You don't just switch it on. You can paddle. You can paddle in the waves. Are you talking about inflatables now? Seriously? I have an inflatable. What are you talking about? S2. Seriously? You're talking about inflatable? I do have an inflatable. It's in my garage. And it's actually big enough to fit a few people. We could probably fit, we can fit a few people on there. What's her name? The inflatable name is a bunch of digits. Blow up doll. So seriously, why do you have an inflatable? You have a Bugout inflatable and a Bugout boat? No, I have a boat. I have an inflatable. It wasn't for the purposes of bugging out. I've sailed the oceans. I've sailed far and wide. I've sailed to Mexico, sailed to Central California. So, hundreds of miles away. I've done that. So, need good lungs. Need good lungs for what? So, yes, I've done that. So, I'm just wondering if, does that help? Do zombies swim? We're talking about, does it have a heliport? How much does a sailboat cost? To buying a sailboat, you can buy a good sailboat for $3,000. you can't maintain it though. I mean, it's the maintenance that costs a lot of money. Yeah, there's Catalina Islands right here, 30 miles away. Sharks? What about sharks? Seriously, sharks. Actually, the largest shark I've seen is this big. That's the largest one I've ever seen, and I've been here a long time. Tons of dolphins, though. I've seen many dolphins. They hang around the boat. Tons of seals. Seen whales. Whale approached me. I've seen whales stuck on the beach and whales that have approached me on the boat. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know though. I'm thinking bugging out on a sailboat is really hard because then you get seasick and then you gotta now where do you go? So if you are trying to get there in the if most efficient way, somebody suggested that I go south to Mexico from California. Go south to Mexico. That it's safer to go to Mexico. I don't know. Because if I go to Mexico and I had guns on the boat, they probably won't allow you to have that. I've seen a 15-foot tiger shark in the ocean. Sailboats, high maintenance. Yes, but I've seen a shark with a head that wide in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. So if you have a sailboat and you bug out and you go to Mexico, I don't know. I don't know if that's any safer. I'm not sure that's I would prefer to go to Central California. Then you can keep your guns. But then you go to Central California and it's upwind. So some of the islands here, there are islands here, but what are you going to eat in the island? If you're stuck there, what are you going to eat? So the busiest island here is Catalina Island, which has buffalo. So if you're going to go into hunting mode, you could do that. But I imagine many people have the same idea and will go to Buffalo also. Go to Catalina as well. Since, it's a popular place. So I don't know. I don't know about that. My thinking is probably that I would not bug out on a boat. That's, I'd probably stay home. How about a sea aircraft on water and sky to escape that way? I'd probably stay home and defend my home. That's what I'm thinking. I do have enough ammo. I have enough ammo. Buy, Justin? Why are you saying buy? All new viewers. Yeah, I have enough ammo. I suppose I can fend off a attack of zombies for a while, and then if I need to really escape, I'll run to the boat. So, why did you say buy, Justin? Do you have another amateur license? Do you have your amateur radio license yet? I have 2 licenses, yes. I'm working on, I have a GMRS license that I just renewed. And I've had it 10 years. And I also have a ham license, and I'm testing for my general license in a week. So next week, by next week, then I will be a... I guarantee I will pass that test. So next week I will have a general license. You should scope from a shooting range. Should scope from a shooting range. And why is that? Why is that interesting to scope from a shooting range? Because then somebody has to hold the camera. I have a general license, but I have to go. Oh, you have to go, Justin? Okay. Yes. So I will work. I will test for the general next week. So been too busy to do it. So been ready for it. So I will test, and I actually want to talk about that too, because when you have a general license, you get different kind of radios. Scope from YouTube Studios. Yes, they told me that I can't scope from YouTube Studios unless I have 10,000 followers. New VPN, Ricky Rickrack. That's my VPN right there. With new features. Go to that website and read up on it. So, anyway. Let's talk about water for a moment. Water. So, from a practical side, yes, yeah, go to that website. A lot of people here have that VPN. So for those of you on my VPN, tell Ricky Rick Rack that he should use my VPN. Let's talk about water for a moment. The uh, the uh, the idea is that if you fill up, like for example, I have several 10 gallon containers. 10 gallons probably the max that I would want to move around. They're very heavy. So this is the problem. If you go smaller, they're more expensive, but they're portable. So typically, if you want them to be mobile, you should get 5 gallon jugs, 5 gallon containers. And I actually posted a link on my YouTube broadcast in here. There's some links there on 10 gallons and 5 gallons. I have those 10 gallon ones there, and thinking back, it would have been better to have some 5 gallons. And the reasons for portability, if you have to rush and say, I got to bring some to the car, how will you do it? Or because the idea that I had was, the water supply gets cut off because of some disaster here in California, like an earthquake, and that there won't be good water because it may be contaminated or whatever. And so what am I going to do? I'm actually near the ocean, so in theory, I can take salt water and boil it. So that's certainly one of the possibilities. But in terms of actually just trying to survive, what you're supposed to do, this is what I read from a long time ago, that you should have, so I have this 10 gallon ones, and I think, how many 10 gallon, I think I may have 10 gallon containers, 10 of them. So if I have those 10 gallon containers and fill them up, you're supposed to add a few teaspoons of Clorox. You're supposed to put a few teaspoons of Clorox on it. That way you can store it for the long run. Otherwise, you're going to have to keep replacing the water. So for long-term storage, you're supposed to put Clorox on it and then you seal it. I forget the exact amount, but I know it's a few teaspoons for the 10 gallon. So that's how, did you ever, yes, of course, I've seen the skip from LA. So thank you, Ricky Rick Rack. Yes, please support me. Buy my VPN. It's one of the ways you support me. You're not giving me money. You're paying the same as you would for anywhere else, but you're supporting the program when you use my VPN. So you get all the benefits with the appreciation of this channel for what you do. What do you carry in my car? I don't carry anything in the car per se, but it's in the garage. The garage is next to the car, so I could easily bug out with whatever is in the garage. So from what, if I'm gonna think back about what I bought, I'm gonna say that I would rather have some of it in 5 gallons. And the other thing is that I wouldn't use those gallon, milk jugs. You will the water. If you'd say, okay, I'm gonna store gallon milk jugs. Well, if you're gonna do that, I have a better idea for you. If there's something imminent that's gonna happen, and I actually did this. I didn't fill up the jugs themselves, but I actually did this. If something is impending, something may happen, and you're aware of it, and can prepare for it in advance. Fill up your tubs. I have several bathrooms here, so I can fill up the tub with water. No, 5 gallon jugs, the right kind, can be stacked. That's why you got to have some heavy duty ones. So the heavy duty plastic ones can be stacked. That's what I wanted to tell you. Because in order to if you just lay it out on the ground, it's really, really hard because it consumes so much space. So now that I think back, most of my 10 gallon ones cannot be stacked. They can't be stacked. So that kind of makes them, unwieldy to use. And if you put these kinds on top of each other, they'll collapse. They're not strong enough. So what you need is the and they're kind of expensive, I know, but if you build up a few of these, you don't need that many of the 5 gallon ones, but you just need some that are portable. So maybe start off with a couple of 5 gallons and the rest in 10 gallons. So, and then you fill up your tub with water. But that's only if you're aware of the emergency happening. Get a swimming pool only to use it to hold water. Food grade 5 gallon bucket with life can be stacked. Food grade, there you go. Food grade, but they gotta be like, thick kinds. I put some links in the ones. Don't stack too high in earthquake country. And have enough water in your car to last you and yours on a long walk home. Jacoby is more of a prepper than I am. Yeah, that's good advice. Good advice. But we don't really go very far, and the ocean is right down here. I'm only 2 blocks away from the ocean, so in theory you can boil it and get some drinking water out of that. A lot of boats actually have water makers. Same shirt. A sweater is a shirt. Oh, apparently according to Jay, you boil it and then you capture the water from the steam. Yeah, a lot of boats have water makers. So many boats, when they go travel for long distances, they don't actually bring a lot of water with them. They make the water on their way using electricity. Good. It's gonna get old, Jay. So, hey, Nabul. Hello, Nabul. Good. So anyway, that's from. Think back to what I might do now, I'd probably get at least a couple of the 5 gallon ones and the rest in 10 gallons, and have it stacked. Yes, I have diesel. I have. My boat has diesel and then a separate container of diesel, and I actually have enough gas on the boat to go, a long way. Probably I could probably run the engine, and I wouldn't be doing this because you would sail, but with sail on, there you wouldn't be consuming any power, and then if you're just running the motor for charging the battery, oh my, that could last a long time. Weeks. Yeah, weeks. I could have weeks of power just running on my boat. Weeks of power just running it, for not using it to move the boat, but just using the power to generate electricity. Yeah, weeks. So anyway, I would get at least a couple of 5 gallon ones that you can carry, because the 10 gallon ones are extremely difficult to carry. So I wouldn't think about carrying those, and you can't stack them. You can't stack them. So in retrospect, I bought too many of the 10 gallon ones. I should have bought the ones that can be stacked. Need at least 3 days for drinking water. Well, I have enough for. Yeah, I have 100 gallons. 100 gallons. So I'm okay. Now, how much ammo do you have? How much ammo do you have? In California, they'll probably tell you, if you have a lot of ammo, then you must be a criminal. Right? If you have a lot of ammo, you must be a criminal. Could get a stock watering tub. Never enough. So how much ammo do you need? That's a good question. Depends on what you're trying to do with it. I'll never tell. Ammo will help a lot. Ammo will help a lot. What are you gonna do when there's no ATM? ATM is down. No Bitcoin either. So no cash. So what are you gonna do? And cash doesn't matter anyway. Nobody wants the money. What are you gonna do when your ATM goes down or internet's down, everything's down, no electricity? What are you gonna do? Yes, if you weren't here during the LA riots, that was pretty crazy. Oh my gosh. The and I didn't have a gun then. Collect alcohol. I didn't have a gun back then, and it was kind of scary. It came the 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 riot the rioting people came fairly close. I'd say within a mile. Within a mile, yeah. And that's a long. L.A. riots was a long time ago. I didn't have a gun then. Not that I have a gun now, but I didn't have a gun then for sure. And it was kind of scary because with all the rioting and in fact a lot of people protected their property by going up to the roof and carrying their rifle up there to dissuade people from attacking their property. And a lot of properties were buildings were burned. I would not OP for the waterway. Something happens when you're on your boat, nowhere to run or hide. Is that what encouraged you to get a gun? No, no, Angel. That's no. Put cannons on the boat. No, what encouraged me to get a gun was getting threatened on Periscope. Getting threatened on Periscope was it. No, not businesses get the worst of it. Yeah, so businesses were looted, so that's where and after the looting, they started fires. So a lot of businesses were burned and then looted, and it was really, the destruction, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. Terrible, and it reached such a large area of the city, more than one in case it jams, more than one bullet. Rooftop patrol from tremor standpoint, from a prepper standpoint. You can see the ones that actually guarded their property with guns were the Koreans. It's in Koreatown. A lot of the rioting happened near Koreatown, and the Koreans. Well, in fact, the part of the reason for the riot was a little bit of conflict between Koreans and blacks. So so the Koreans felt like they were going to be targeted. So the Koreans were putting armed, and they were being very visible about it. Putting people with rifles on their on the roofs. So yeah, so you see a lot of that. If you look at the internet, you'll see all the Korean buildings with armed people up on the roof guarding them during the riots, and that probably saved a lot of Koreatown, because the area around Koreatown was pretty devastated. Near Koreatown, very devastated. Like just a little bit south of it was really bad. So, but the actual Koreatown itself survived. So that was crazy because Koreans were the one of the targeted groups by the rioters during the time, because Koreans ran liquor stores in the poor areas of town, and they were assumed to be taking advantage. Run 2 meter, 60 meter, and a slow scan. What are we? What am I missing here? As Isaac, Rob loved the ham stuff. I want to talk more about ham in a second. It's really a good topic because now that I got my ham license here and my general license coming next week, you can make a shotgun out of galvanized pipe if the shit. No, I don't need that, Wayne. I have sufficient ammo. Now, somebody said ammo doesn't matter. Ammo actually. In the reality is, somebody actually said, how much ammo would you use in a real firefight? And the answer is, very few. In fact, the average soldier in Afghanistan or in Iraq didn't carry more than typically 4 magazines. Was that right? Somewhere in there, like 4 extra magazines. So they just stuck, 4 magazines and maybe a pistol. A standard M16, M4 would carry 30 rounds per mag. So figure, 40, 44. So, no, 30, sorry, 36, 120. So no more than 150 rounds that they would carry. And yeah, and many times they even carried less than that. So typical firefight, they don't expect to shoot more than 150 of the rounds. So, and yet, they could also lob grenades. Yeah, so, a couple of grenades, and usually they just have a radio to call HQ and send the what do you call that? The ground support airplane. What's the name of that? What is the ground support one? A something. The propeller-driven ground support. The Warthog. What is the designation of Warthog? A-10. A-10? Yes. I was trying to figure out what the number was. Let's get more. Thank you, Warthogs. Yes, they have some Warthogs, and they don't have to carry that much ammo. So anyway, given that, why would you need like 1,000 rounds of ammo? So a typical suggestion I've heard for preppers is have 1,000 rounds per gun. And thinking to myself, that's actually good, because just even for trading, the ammo can be worth money. A-10 Warthog Gatling gun, not battling gun. Why not? So yeah. So you can exchange, because some of you think you use money. Well, money isn't going to be worth much in that kind of situation. Somebody's actually leaving comments on the 5G video and not watching me live. That's pretty funny. Somebody just left me a comment on the 5G video and doesn't see that I'm broadcasting live. So anyway, yes, hard currency, hey. Actually, even if you didn't have a gun, you can stack up on ammo. In California, though, you have to register now to get some ammo. Joe, you have to register to get ammo now in California, and you can't bring it from another state. So I can't go drive to Las Vegas and say I'm gonna get my ammo over there, because then they're gonna spot you over here and and such. So then take you to jail. Did you hear about the dog men? I don't know what that is, Joe. I don't know what that is. So that's as far as the weapons go. Now as far as food, there was somebody actually. I saw somebody on YouTube make a container like this, and they put rice and then beans. They mix the rice and the beans, and they have a recipe for it. And so all you have to do is cook the container, and you got a lot of food there. And they were already pre-packed. And I said, that's very, very interesting. Yeah. Well, when you're hungry and you don't have any food, Joe. If you're hungry, you don't have any food, what do? I don't like beans. I don't like rice. Slice sacks on YouTube. What? What's that mean? Mexican food? I don't know. I don't know what you could do with the beans. Can you get salsa? I don't know if you can get salsa when in the SHTF. I know how to forage. Vegans will eat grass. Are you a vegan, Mark? Are you a vegan? Pygmy is on YouTube. Pygmy is on YouTube? Yes, Pygmy is on YouTube. Oh, oh, you're saying that your SI6 is Pygmy. Oh, okay. Sorry. Your friend from North. Yes, I know Pygmy, but I didn't know your. Why don't you just rename your YouTube to Pygmy, and then it'll be easy. Hard to remember all these changing names. Hard to remember. So, are you a prepper? Being where you are, Pygmy, Scott, being where you are you a prepper? Read Savages by Shirley Conran. I don't know about Savages by Shirley Conran, but I've read a lot of zombie books. I love those. Love zombie books. Have to keep your mind sharp. I love those, zombie books and survival with zombies. And then but then some books have the zombies that are moving very fast, and some books the zombies are moving very slow. Yes, very well said. Pygmy as a would you call yourself a prepper, Pygmy? Would you call yourself a prepper? Would you classify yourself as a prepper? I don't know. I do many prepper kind of things, but I wouldn't consider myself a prepper because I'm not actually preparing for anything. But I have all the parts. You'd probably love it. Come to think, Savage. Okay, Savage by Conran, Shirley. Okay, Savages. Okay. So yeah, I love zombie books. I love the idea of going out there with your gun and then yeah. I was told BTS would be here with open bobs. I can neither confirm nor deny. Nobody knows who you are, Pygmy. I don't know where you are. They'll say, how many people live in Northwoods, Wisconsin? 5. Okay, they're one of the 5. Okay, there you go. I actually have so many people, lots of zombies in California. I actually, for whatever reason, a lot of my followers are from Wisconsin. And a lot of people from Wisconsin buy my products. And a lot of people from the D.C. area, Virginia, Maryland, buy my products. Is there a connection? Because, the 3-letter agencies are over in the D.C. area, so I understand why they're buying my products. But what's with Wisconsin? Must be the prepper mentality. The preppers in Wisconsin versus the 3-letter agency defensive people in the D.C. area in Virginia and Maryland, including Kelp. Kelp's over there. What are people for? Do they buy them? 3-letter agencies in New York. There are 3-letter agencies in New York near the World Trade Center. Miss you in Wisconsin. Several of my friends with agencies love my scopes. Seriously, agency people like to watch my scopes. Are you kidding me? That's pretty funny. And then I found out. You know what I found out yesterday was pretty funny. Randy Horton. Randy Horton from Wow Pygmy. That's awesome. I didn't know that. They don't speak up. They should go to Brax and tell me secrets. I trust this one for some odd reason. Baba Booey, you trust Baba Booey, but not me? What the zuck? What the zuck? So, now I forget what I was talking about. Wisconsin or 3-letter agencies, or what was I talking about? I forget. Anyway, it'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. Maybe if I look at the comments here, I will remember what. No, you focused. Yes, Joe is a survivalist. Okay, so be right back. Okay, Kathy. By the way, Randy Horton. So Randy Horton apparently works for the enemy. He works for the enemy. He worked for the, the resellers of the blue suit people types. So that's what I learned yesterday. Randy Orton, the wrestler. No, Randy Horton, the scoper from Saudi Arabia. Time for my EDC 2, my aluminum cap. So anyway, Randy Horton apparently works in the cyber blue suit people. Yeah, the offensive side of cybersecurity. Offensive. So he contracts with he sets up contracts with governments such as the Saudi Arabian government. Congrats on your 12. Thank you, 1293. That's something to be congrats. Thank you anyway. I need to get that higher. It's not moving very much. My subscriber count is not moving as fast as it should. If I'm gonna make a living doing this, it needs to expand more. You can make YouTube video on how to add frequencies on our new hams. I will, AMG, if people want to watch it. He doesn't mention the name of his employer. He does. But it's a reselling company, so they don't make the products. I haven't been around. Lost mom and dad within 9 months. You told me about. You told me about one of them, Pygmy. Yeah, I did not know that you lost both. Did not know that. I'm sorry to hear that, Pygmy. So anyway, let's talk about communications, which I think is very, very important. And I'm gonna kind of expand on your knowledge of communications here more than I have so far, because the things I've talked to you about in relation to communications have been more basic, and in a true prepper kind of mode, that's not actually a good explanation. For if you're a true prepper, then you really have to think about prepper comms. Okay, there's actually somebody with the YouTube name Prepper Comms, and I've been watching him. But Prepper Comms, Prepper Communications, is completely different than what you might think. And simply saying you're going to go to Walmart and get a bunch of these isn't going to do it. And getting these require license, and even this is not the complete answer. So you have to understand the limitations of these and what these are for, because the one thing you cannot use in an emergency are these. These are going to be useless. Can you imagine that our world have become so dependent on the infrastructure for cell phones that we actually don't realize that it's centrally controlled. Therefore, a loss of power or a loss of an internet trunk might render these pretty much useless. Phones were out during the SF quake in 1989. Yeah, telephones, but cell phones would even be worse off. So this is, if you're relying on this, if you're not, most of you, I'm going to tell you this, most of you, if you even want to remotely think a little bit like a prepper, aside from water's number one. You could probably survive without food for a while. And you probably have food in the pantry, crackers and things canned food that can keep you alive for a little bit. But the one thing that you need in an emergency is water and communications. And the phone isn't going to do it. Phone isn't going to do it. I'm going to tell you what happened again for those of you who don't recall what happened last November. It was very recent. The town of Paradise, California was burned down. There's nothing left of the town. The entire town of Paradise, California is gone. Well, guns may not be an issue when it's a disaster. So, I mean, it's safety, but the two most important things are water and communications. The key to prepping is don't tell anyone. Yeah, because in case they steal your resources. But that's not really it. The key to prepping is being prepped. you got survive. Well, the problem is like people like me and Great Gold and Starlight who are in the cities. They're in New York, I'm in LA, and we have a bit of a problem here because there's a ton of people here. If resources are shut down even for a short amount of time, it's a big crisis. I mean, there are millions of people in these two places. Many, many millions. And can you imagine, many, many millions of unfed people? So that's kind of a problem. And so Paradise, California, burnt down. There's obviously not going to be any phone service or anything. I mean, all the telephone poles were burned down. They will migrate to Arizona. Guns give away your location. Crossbows are best. They're like quiet farts. P&G was responsible for what happened in Paradise. That's why they filed for bankruptcy. Yes. So, given this, we talk about water. I would really be concerned about communications, and I'm going to tell you a lot more about ham radio right now because basically, in an emergency, the only thing that will really save you, knowing what's going on, is ham radio. Now, ham radio is actually two parts. This is the part I didn't really explain. Ham radio is in two parts. If people smell food cooking and they're starving, where they are coming. First aid kit. I've met with this many fight for water in Puerto Rico. Where Lenny PR was in Puerto Rico. It's from Puerto Rico. We have a place upstate, but my biggest fear is not being able to get over the Triborough Bridge. Yeah, in my case, I can walk to my boat and then, in theory, stay offshore, even near shore. I don't have to be that far from shore and just stay there. I can, in theory, if depending on what the kind of emergency is, I do have a way of doing that. And experience. I mean, I'm very experienced in the water. Unless a tsunami. No, tsunamis are very brief events. So if a tsunami happens, it happens and it stops happening. I'm not worried about tsunami hitting my house. No. So I'm pretty high up. So it's there has been no tsunami that's gotten this high. I think an AM FM radio will still working in batteries and radio. No, Mark, I wouldn't think so. And besides, it's not good for communicating. It's one way. 60-foot wave in Japan tsunami. Yes, I don't have to worry about that. Hey, I'm higher than 60 feet. There's almost no likelihood of it getting this far. I'm pretty high up. So, yeah. In fact, there's a sign that says, in case of a tsunami, go to where we are. They actually have signs down on the road pointing to go uphill. So, suitcase size mini mic is more likely. Mini nuke is more likely than a tsunami. Actually, that's even less likely compared to, let's say, EMP. EMP is more likely to me. EMP is more likely, and it's delivered by air. So I'm going to guess a EMP is a bigger fear because that can destroy the whole country, not just a little area of a suitcase-sized nuke. So EMP would be the bigger fear. What were the biggest swells of waves you've ever had to deal with? 10 feet, probably. I've never, in this part of the world, we don't. That's pretty high, 10 feet, and that's quite high. So, yeah, 10 feet, and that's pretty rough. So, that I've experienced a lot. 8 to 10 feet I've experienced often. So, I mean, 10 feet. So if you're think about the wave taller than your 8 foot ceiling. So yeah, think about that. So at 10 feet, you're depending on the size of your boat. I mean, part of you, because there's a trough too. So with including the trough, that could be 20 feet. So that means your boat is almost vertical. That's pretty scary. Millions will die first month after an EMP attack. Well, go watch my EMP video last week. I've sailed to. I haven't done I haven't gone as far as. I don't have that kind of time to go to Hawaii, but I've sailed 3 days to Mexico. That's probably the max that I cover and then stop. So I don't normally go more than that continuously. So and I haven't done it in a while. I used to do it a lot. So anyway, going back to radio, and I really encourage. Apparently, I have encouraged enough of you that several of you have actually gotten or are working towards or have gotten or are working on your ham license. So just because I'm talking about it here, I've actually encouraged a bunch of people to get involved with getting a ham license, and I'm really glad that I'm doing that. And because this is kind of an area that a lot of people have forgotten about because they think of the convenience of a cell phone is all you have to think about. The cell phones are useless devices in case of an emergency. This is not going to help you. Now, the problem with just saying that you're going to get a ham license is that you don't exactly know what that means. So let me just break it down for you in two categories. When you sign up for your first ham license, you get something called a technician license. I'll be frank with you. You can probably pass a technician license by memorization. Well, they tell you all the questions and they tell you all the answers. And with memorization, you have a high likelihood of passing it. I had my tech class license, but lost interest too much riffraff. So anyway, having a tech license allows you to get these kinds of radios. This is a VHF, UHF, or UHF, VHF, UHF hand transceiver, and this really should only be handled by somebody with a license. If you don't have a license, you shouldn't really, or not intending to get a license. If you intend to get a license, then go ahead and buy it. But if you're not really intending to get a license, I really wouldn't advise that you get this, because this can actually transmit on all the bands that it has coverage on, which includes the police bands. You can actually reach the police bands, the Marine bands, NOAA, 70 centimeter UHF, VHF at 2 meters, MURS, FRS, GMRS, all of that can be covered by this. Places that this is not licensed for. So, in theory, if you do not have a license, and this is kind of a device that would have illegal capability. So, I don't actually recommend that you're going to have a problem if you don't know what you're doing and you start pressing buttons on here and start transmitting. Some of them are. They're not. A lot of police bands are not encrypted, but are in trunk radio, so you can't actually talk to them, but you can disrupt their signal. You may not be able to converse them, but you can disrupt their signal, and then some part of them are not encrypted at all and can be easily heard. I have channels in here where you can actually hear them. 1 1 1 1 3 6. Here, let me let me scan it, and maybe maybe we'll spot some
Same
police.
here. A little overcast, a little cloudy, a little bit of rain here in Austin, Texas, but
We'll see if it scans police here. If there's anything happening, because I hear the police there. There it is.
Stop.
Here we go.
9088888787888.
So I'll leave it on the police one if that's dispatch. So if something's happening, we'll hear it. Okay, first I went alone, meaning without my dad, was Atlanta City. It was pretty easy. My dad, of course, made sure I need to know. If you're talking EMP attack, how will this work? This will actually survive an EMP. This is one of the things that you need to watch my EMP video on. Okay, let's talk specific about communications. There are two kinds of licenses for ham radio. The first one is a technician license, which allows you to use mostly the bands covered by this device. So technician license are really made for this device. These are the frequencies typically accessed by a technician license. You need a technician license to use this. And if you do, then you have access to it. And it has access to other bands that are...
230 Frank Handle, 415 2V, 11444 South Street at Flavor Faux, Male Black 8, selling candy at location, DP messed up restroom, and the DP is inside the location, tag 82.
That's police. Okay, so that was police. It's good to disconnect antenna storage. EMP will go through antenna and fry radio. Can you all just watch my EMP broadcast? Because you're making statements there that you're not aware of. Most of the frequencies in EMP will be low frequency. This is made for... This is made for 70 centimeters, which is in a high frequency range. This is not likely the range of the EMP range, because most of the voltages and frequencies from an EMP will come from the wiring, telephone lines. It will be very, very low frequency, extremely low frequency. Hundreds of meters, frequency ranges. This is high frequency. So if this is not plugged in, then this will survive. Your cell phone will likely survive because unless it's plugged in. If your device is not plugged in, it will survive an EMP. Okay, so that's police. So I'm getting police on here. Anyway, so the ones that will not survive are the ones that are plugged in and are low frequency, and that's the other part of getting a ham radio. If you've heard of ham radio doing contacts from like thousands of miles away, called a DX for distance contact, those use a different kind of radio that requires a different license, and I didn't talk about that. Okay, the license that is required to talk at a distance. This does not talk at a distance by itself. This will only talk within a range of 5 to 10 miles if you're on the ground. This can talk further using repeaters. So there's repeaters in LA area in the mountains, and so I can talk using this. I can talk to people within a range of probably 100 miles radius. So probably up to 200 miles away, I can talk to people on this, and I've talked to people easily, fairly far away with this. Easily 50, 60 miles away is very common to have a conversation where they're telling me I'm loud and clear. Okay? The problem is that this is only line of sight. So in an emergency, if this area is is damaged by an earthquake, of all of LA is damaged, then you may need to go elsewhere for a signal that's not line of sight. Well, this isn't going to work. And if you're outside the radius of the repeater, then you're pretty much sucked. And there's no power, there's no internet. You can't get beyond the local. This is basically a local radio. So preppers need to think of I'm just trying to explain something to you about prepper communications. You have to think about local, regional, and national or international. 3 types of communications: local, regional, and you have to charge it. Built-in battery. This uses a built-in battery, so you have to have a charger, easily acquired. By the way, that's part of what, I don't know if I have time to explain it tonight, but I really want to talk about how you charge these devices. So anyway, to reach beyond local, you need a different kind of radio, and it's called an HF, or high frequency radio. These are ultra high frequency and very high frequency radios. You need one that goes lower, in the lower bands, and they're called HF, high frequency radio. They're below FM, they're not FM. They're above AM radio, and they're in between, and that's where all the ham radio traffic occurs, as well as a lot of other government traffic. So the HF radio range requires a general license unless you're using just Morse code. A technician has access to the lower bands in some limited areas with Morse code or CW, carrier wave. So they can do that, but limited. If you want to use voice, you cannot. You need to use a different kind of receiver. Those receivers are kind of expensive. So, even a cheap receiver will be, $600, and then it goes up, to $1,500. That's just the receiver, transceiver, not counting antennas and other equipment and power supplies and so on. So to actually have a full rig to communicate needs a general license, and you also need to spend probably a couple $1,000 at least to get started, and then you will be able to reach national and international. So this is funny because I'm going to explain to you again because it's kind of confusing, okay? For those with the lower level license or the first level license, ham license, technician, you can use this for local communications. Then you have the next level, getting those HF transceivers, which are more expensive, and they have very large antennas, very large. Like even at the lower ranges of that, you're talking about a 30-foot antenna would be the smallest that you would use, all the way to 130 feet of an antenna. And where would you hang a 130-foot antenna? You'd have to have a bunch of trees and such. So it starts to get hard to set it up. You have to not only set up the antenna, but set up the coax so it reaches the radio. So it's kind of difficult to do that. So that set of radios is called HF. And that's for long distance. And the reason it works long distance is it uses radio waves to go into the ionosphere, and it jumps back. It's called skip. So I'm going to use the top of my broadcast here to do this. Okay, so the signal goes up, and then bounces down and goes up. It's like a zigzag. And it's using the ionosphere to bounce a signal back, and you can only broadcast in certain times of the day and so on, based on frequency and based on solar spots and so on. So it's it requires special equipment to do all that. But let me tell you something that's really difficult with these HF radios. They're not very good at regional communications. They're not made for regional. For regional, you need to have another setup using the same HF radios. You need to do what is called NVIS. What's NVIS again? Near Visible Incident Skywave. Let me make sure I got a mental block. Near vertical incident skywave. Okay, and so you need a special antenna that sends directly up and comes down. Now you don't need a lot of power for this, so that's a whole different plan of action. A good prepper would actually near vertical incident skywave. Yeah. So a good prepper should actually be more concerned about NVIS because that's how you communicate to the next state. So that'll be like in 300 mile zone. So, it's a fun hobby to talk on HF and talk to Ireland and the UK and Australia and Japan and Argentina, but those are not going to talk to your neighbor right here in a different state where you're really looking for emergency help. So I'm thinking that for a prepper, the prepper actually needs to focus on two kinds of communications. One is local, this with repeaters. That's one. And second is doing something called NVIS, Near Vertical Incident Skywave, which requires a completely different set of equipment. And you can also do that with Morse code. So it made me think of, learning Morse code, or at least having a computer that talks Morse code for me, so that I don't have to think about it. I just, there is a glass bottle. So again, from a prepper concept, from a prepper point of view, if I'm going to think about priorities, I'm going to prioritize on local communications, which is part of the technician license, and NVIS or regional communications using NVIS, which requires a general license. If I needed help from another state, I wouldn't contact Indiana. Depends on where you are. It's Saturday night. What does that have to do with anything? So anyway, I'm researching what device I might want to get to have a NVIS capability, because NVIS again requires 30-foot antenna, near ground, doesn't have to be high, and how do we know you're really live now? NVIS, yeah, like NCIS. What the zuck? I have an 8-inch antenna, pretty short antenna. Do you need to know more? You don't need Morse code to get to get a license. No, and you can actually just attach devices that do the Morse code for you. Okay, you can actually have software that does the Morse code for you, so you don't have to think about it. Also, if you're using ham radio, you don't have to use Morse code. There's modes called RIDI where you can actually just type it up. So you're able to just type up as fast as you can type. You can talk on ham radio using RTTY, RTTY. So the problem is that anything that uses RTTY is usually an expensive unit. So the cheapest ways to transmit Morse code is actually, it's not expensive if you know Morse code. It's not expensive because you don't need a microphone, and you can use a low power transmitter. So for NVIS, it doesn't have to be so powerful. You can transmit NVIS up to the sky and down because you're not going very far, and be able to communicate using Morse code. So I haven't found a good cheap one that I'm researching this. This is important to me, and when I get my general license, I can actually have which is only in a week. I will have the ability to go test that out and actually see. I'm looking now what equipment I don't want to spend money. That's the only problem. It's kind of expensive. Even a used transceiver, a good one, could be $300 for a used one, and then you got to buy all the. I mean, you're gonna spend $1,000. No, there are no code. All the licenses have no codes now. Rick Rack since 1991. All code requirements have been eliminated since 1991. That's a long time ago. All I know is that's right, SOS, Starlight. That's SOS. Yeah, good thing you know that. Now, would you recognize it if you heard it? That's the other question. Because, it's actually sound-based. I have a few HF radios, QRP, and an older vacuum tube, Kentwood. Are you selling any of them, Justin? Is there a QRP, Justin, is there a QRP RIDI? That'd be great if there was a QRP RIDI. Is there such a thing? Can you find a QRP RIDI that's inexpensive? Even like make one with a Raspberry Pi? Because, low power. Everyone should at least know emergency Morse. So Justin, let me know if there's a QRP. QRP means low power unit. And that's that's all you need for NVIS, regional communications with, for a prepper, they are going to be mostly concerned with NVIS. If you look at prepper websites, they're going to be looking at NVIS. So they're going to look at this, okay? And the rest of them are going to look at NVIS. They're not going to look, let me tell you, you love good Raspberry Pi, Felicia. Okay, they're not going to be looking at D-Star, DMR, CQing somebody from, Argentina and the UK. I mean, this is fun stuff, making all these DX contacts is for fun. It's not for preppers. So if I were a prepper, I would be thinking about NVIS. I'm not going to go look at the device as simply having fun on a HF radio. What I would be thinking about if I were a prepper, and I'm thinking like a prepper right now, is could I make a portable HF transceiver that gets with a maybe a 30-foot antenna that I hang off a tree, be able to transmit an emergency message using NVIS with something that I can just carry, like a portable battery and a portable radio. Do you have a call sign yet? N7, yeah, that's my call sign, N7 Brax. Or N6 Brax. How long do you think before the zombie apocalypse? I love reading those zombie apocalypse books, let me tell you. But it's gonna be if you're asking me which one do I prefer, zombie apocalypse books or NSA chasing you books, 3-letter agencies chasing you books, and that's a toss up. Because I enjoy those NSA chasing books too, because they talk about how to evade using burner phones and all that, and then I think about all the flaws in them. I said, this author is not up to date. There could have been a way around that, and it's fun for me because I think of it as something I know very well, so I understand. It's kind of risky, you know. Zombies, of course, you know, it's not just radio because zombies is shoot 'em up. Hell no, I'm not selling the ones I own. I really like the Elecraft KX3. That Elecraft, check that out, Justin. That's like, you know, $1,200 for a ducking kit radio? Wow. Did you read the Wired article of the reporter tried to hide out? No, Felicia, pass me the link. Not here, though. Maybe on Brax Me. Justin, answer me the question, though. Do you know of a QRP, low power, meaning low power, for those of you who don't know what that means, a low power RIDI radio? A low power or QRP RIDI radio that I can take that's portable, that's inexpensive. Is there, because I don't know Morse codes. I don't want to deal with Morse code. If I were dealing with an emergency, I'd like to have RIDI capability, RTTY, which is like texting, and have it portable. That would be the best. So, is there such a thing, Justin? Do you know about such a thing? That Elecraft is mind-bogglingly expensive for kit radio. I mean, you might as well buy a full-size, you know, ICOM 7300 versus buying a fucking kit radio for $1,200. I understand why you like it, though, but that's expensive. Zombies, how to kill them. Destroy the brain, remove the head. Depends on the zombie, Rick Rack. Depends on the zombie. That doesn't work on all zombies. Some zombies don't react like that. It doesn't work with all zombies. So your theory might not work. Justin, help me out. Answer the question. Since you have a general license, maybe you know the answer. Double tap? Are you going to do the... I think I may have dated a zombie. Do you know about the Mogadishu? I don't know your price range. I said cheap for QRP. If it's not cheap, then it's pointless. You might as well get a 7300. ICOM 7300. I mean, if it's not going to be... An ICOM 7300 is what? 1100 new. So obviously, it's got to be cheaper than that. Otherwise, it's pointless. Just buy a 7300. I'm just wondering if there's the Mogadishu is it's not a double tap. So a Mogadishu is, this is a Mogadishu. Okay. Now don't get antsy now. I'm gonna fire this. So you're going to hear sound. So this is the Mogadishu. That's the Mogadishu. Which is one to the head and then a double tap. That's the Mogadishu. Because they I guess in Mogadishu they couldn't put him down, you know, Black Hawk they couldn't put him down with the double tap, so they had to do the Mogadishu. Okay, one to the head and then a double tap. Rob just said Zakyu in Morse code. I did. Is that what Mogadishu is? Oh, yeah, that's the Morse code. Mogadishu. Pop, pop, pop. Did. Look on EHAM under QRP section. I don't. Yeah, but is there such a thing? Is what I'm asking. Is there a category like that? Or do you have to build one? an inexpensive QRP with RIDI. Because, wow, if there was a cheap one like that for emergencies, preppers would just love that. Because then they don't have to learn Morse code. And if it's low powered, and it's got to be cheap, like Raspberry Pi cheap. Did Kelp die? I'm sure he did not. He was here yesterday. Maybe because he doesn't like to be a prepper. He doesn't like to be a prepper. By the way, just asking you because there's not a lot of people here from Periscope, and which is not abnormal for me nowadays. But the question is this an interesting topic for you, or this is not an interesting topic? The fact that you're here probably means the people here are interested. But is this because this is something you never hear about. Nobody ever talks about the stuff. Nobody ever talks about